Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on a video. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking. If you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making. And today, I have a little bit of a weird, it's kind of a new idea that I have. I want to get you guys more involved in my videos because you guys are the reason why these videos are made, why, I'm starting to make money off of YouTube. You guys are the entire reason why this is all happening. And so I feel like it's time to get you guys involved in the videos. So today will mark the first time that you guys are getting involved in my videos. I want to do this more, but this is the first iteration of this. And basically, I went on my Discord server and I asked you guys what you guys had for unpopular opinions. What were your guys' most unpopular opinions? And we got over 150 submissions. You guys were debating each other in the thread. It was super fun to watch and read through. And so next time I'll probably make a new question and you guys can answer that. But I do intend to do this more. So if you want to get in on the next video, join the Discord server. It's the top link in the description. We have so much fun there. We talk Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, Australian Survivor. You can ask me questions. You can debate other people on tons of stuff. It's super, super fun there. We have tons of fun. Join that. And so I went through and I selected a few that I thought were really, really fun. Although there's like 150 of them, I selected maybe, I think, around 10 of them that I thought were like the most either controversial. I selected a few that I kind of go back and forth on, a few that I really agree with, and a few that I really disagree with. And so I'm going to go through, give my take on them. I'll try and keep it short and quick, but I might have to go off on a rant on a few of these. But before we start, 72% of you guys who are watching these videos are not subscribed. Let's change that. It's easy and it's free. And if that's it, let's get right into this video. So the first one that I have that I personally found that I really like, I liked, well, first of all, I sent out my question in the Discord and I said, for a future video, what are your biggest unpopular Survivor opinions? Everyone is welcome to answer, and boy, did everybody answer. We got tons of entries, and the first one that I found to be the most fun and not so, I don't agree with it personally, but I think it's definitely fun to talk about, is Edge of Extinction. Is a top 10 season. I really disagree with this. Let me explain why. So Edge of Extinction, I think, has some fun gameplay in the post-merge. There isn't many boots that are super obvious. The characters are somewhat well fleshed out, especially on the Manu tribe, I believe it's called. The tribe with David, Kelly, I think it's War Dog, and Rick Devens doesn't make the merge as their tribe, but he comes back. So really Rick Devens as well. And so that tribe has, and Lauren O'Connell. And so you have these like really fleshed out characters, and by the time of the merge, they are all like top tier characters, and they're all really good casting choices. The issue is you get nothing from the Kama tribe. So while these 5 people are so developed, they go out, or at least half of them go out very early in War Dog and Kelly, and that leaves us with only like 3 fleshed out characters in the entire Kama tribe minus Joe and Aubrey, just being completely like unedited. We knew a little bit about Ron, I guess, and maybe aside from that, I'm trying to think, we had known a bit about Gavin, because he obviously goes on to be the runner-up here, but aside from that, Julia, Aurora, Julie, like all of these people, like I legitimately, even coming out of the season, I felt like I really didn't know them, but definitely like when we got to the merge, it would have been more fun if the scramble was with people that I actually knew and cared about, but instead it's with people like Julia, who I'm like, who is Julia? Like, who is this person, Julia? When the big scramble tribal happens, which is honestly one of, if not the best versions of a live tribal. The issue is we don't know who like 70% of the people who are scrambling around, who they are, what they want, their goals in the game, their place in the game. It's very confusing to now meet 8 new people at the merge, and that's not really digestible, especially from a casual perspective, but also from a super fan perspective. And so to me, that's why Edge of Extinction really holds off from being in this top, even like 15 or 20 spot. For me, it's like probably around like 20. It's just not for me personally. The next submission that I thought was quite interesting, and I actually really agree with, is the Sarah Lucina is one of the greatest players to ever play the game submission from Engen. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but that's a very hard name to pronounce. A lot of consonants in the same area. But nonetheless, Sarah Lucina is one of the greatest to ever play, is 100% true. I had Sarah, I believe, at my number 3 spot on my top 10 players of all time, and I stand by it. I think Sarah plays, honestly, her worst game is her first game. And I know, like, it's kind of like the new popular thing to really focus on someone's first game. Like, it's a very Survivor purist type of thing to do. And I'm also, a Survivor purist, but I really can't knock somebody for coming back and improving the way that they play and being able to fix their mistakes and play even better games. I especially can't knock it if they come back, do it, and then come back with an even bigger threat in Winners at War, where in the pregame, all of the women said that they would vote out Sarah first, and yet she still gets almost all the way to the end, loses in fire. And so and then obviously in her winning game, plays an absolutely socially dominant game, is able to flip back and forth and somehow still keep the entire jury on her side against a pretty likable person in this season in Brad Culpepper. I guess aside from his little outbursts with Ty, he's a pretty likable figure on this season. He wins 5 immunity challenges, and he kind of props himself up as a very emotional guy, and so he's very likable. And yet Sarah, the person who's flipping back and forth, super cutthroat, can still win a jury vote over him, and it's not by 1, it's by like 2 or 3 full votes. And so I do have to give her props there. And as far as her being the greatest to ever play, I think Tony's better than her, as I said in my list, and I think Parvati's better just because Parvati's first game versus Sarah's first game, I think Parvati's first game is better. She makes it farther. She has a better shot to win the game. Obviously, Sarah is like the 6th boot in her season, whereas in Parvati is something crazy like I think she's like the 13th or 14th boot. So obviously 2 very, very different levels. And so I do put Parvati, and then obviously Tony is the GOAT. No questions involved. So I do feel like Tony beats her, but everybody else to me doesn't really compare to Sarah on as far as like playing 2 very, very good games. So I do have to give her a lot of props for what she's been able to do, coming back and fixing her game. Another submission that I got that I actually like really found quite interesting, and I personally don't agree with it, but I can understand why some do, is that Russell deserved to win HVV. So obviously Russell plays such two really, really aggressive games in Samoa, and then coming back in Heroes vs. Villains, both like coming from the bottom. I mean, really, it's 2 types of bottom, right? So Samoa, he comes in on top on his tribe, but then he gets to the merge and he's on the bottom, down in numbers, and comes back. In Heroes vs. Villains, it's almost the opposite, where after the merge episode of Heroes vs. Villain, he has all of the control in the world. He doesn't even have to really play that hard. But in the pre-merge, in the HVV season, he plays awesome. He plays lights out. He's able to convince Tyson to throw away him, Rob's, entire game. And then really, like, a very overlooked thing after that is he still doesn't have a majority. He convinces Coach and Jerry to flip over from Rob's side. And I mean, to me, it's insane that he can convince Coach to flip over with him just to have Coach go home the next episode. It's very, very impressive. I think the only downfalls to his game are really just Sandra getting like a one-up on him and voting out Coach, even though I do think that Coach eventually would have blindsided Russell because Coach is so righteous and thinks that, Russell's this evil man, which I can understand why. And so I think in the end, it does benefit Russell, but Sandra does trick Russell into voting out Coach. And then obviously Russell's ability not to win a jury vote, which is really, really like a knock on his game. But I do think that he definitely played a really, really good game. I probably would have voted for Parvati, but maybe if I saw it from a different perspective and I was in the game, I would respect Russell's game more. But I just really don't know, to be honest. This next one was interesting. So Hammy says, also, being woke does not hurt Survivor. It just changes it to relate things to the real world. And some people don't like change. That's why they're so pressed about everything that happened this season, because they're afraid of change. I disagree. And let's just start out with the obvious. So Hammy is really just executing a classic topic of you're just afraid of good things happening because obviously people who are afraid of good things happening are bad people. That's like the definition of being bad, is being against good. And she's saying that if you are against her, you are afraid of change. She's saying change in a positive way. So basically what she's saying is you are afraid of positive change. That's her equating being against her to literally being evil. To me, that's not really that's not really a progressive discussion. To me, that's more of painting the other side as negative. I really I haven't seen anything in this sentence to really prove her argument other than coming after the other side. It's funny, people who have these opinions tend to attack the other side rather than defending themselves. It's all about attack, but never, well, why do you actually feel that way? It's always, well, but you're weird, so I don't have to prove my own argument. It's like, if you really know your stuff, you should be able to rationalize your own opinion. That's something that I take pride in, and I think that's something that Hammy just simply cannot. As far as her actual argument, it's wrong. She's insinuating that because you don't agree that, for an example, Jeff should, or I personally don't agree that Jeff should change guys, or that 15-minute racial discussions at Tribal and at the start of the next episode are necessary. That I'm somehow against, afraid of this change in Survivor. That's silly to me. I'm not afraid of change. Change is somewhat necessary, and it's always necessary in some facet, and I think in this case it's somewhat necessary in certain aspects, not the ones that you want. I think there is changes to be made as far as context of police departments and things like that, maybe using badge cams more, things like that. But to start talking about how if you don't agree with you, then I'm just afraid of all changes, or that I need to specifically agree with only your changes, to me it shows a very simple-mindedness, and obviously Hammy has not thought out her opinion that well. Okay, next one. Again, I told you guys I would end up ranting on one of these, and this just happened to be that one. The next one says, I'm going to add on to this too. Natalie from Samoa was one of the best winners. She played hard and she didn't ride off Russell. She did stick with him, but he didn't make her win. She won by working hard and making good strategy. She played under the radar with she played under the radar game with one of the best strategies you can do. So I think she meant which is one of the best strategies that you can do because you're not known as the biggest threat when you kind of are. She also had a great social game, and she adapted well. Good job to Natalie, top tier winner. Also, Brett was underrated. So first of all, the Brett is absolutely hilarious. Brett was not underrated. Brett was only going to win the game because he was on a season where his entire tribe was on the jury. Literally the entire jury, except for Jason, was full glue, and obviously they wanted to see someone from their tribe win. I will give him credit. He did put himself in probably the best spot to win the game if his tribe does take the numbers. But Brett, I'm Brett. It's Brett. I mean, I think Russell has one of the best quotes in the history of Survivor. He says, Brett ain't no Mike Tyson. He's Brett. Like, it's just Brett. Like, come on. Like, Brett is not going to do anything. It's Brett. As far as the Natalie being a top tier winner, I have to seriously just disagree. Although I do think that she did purposely align with Russell and purposely allow Russell to big himself up as a target. In the end, Russell did carry her through the entire game, and without Russell to help her get past those 8 to 4 numbers at the start of the merge, if it's like her, Jason, Mick, and then insert random person from the Foa tribe pre-merge, there's no way that they come back. They came back purely due to Russell's playing the game, not because of Natalie, catching a rat or whatever. It is purely Russell. And so to me, to insinuate that, Russell just didn't do anything and it was all Natalie's social game, to me, as good as Nat's social game is, and as much as she may have been playing Russell, she won't play at all if Russell isn't there to drag her to the end. And so that's just my personal opinion on Natalie's game. And so I can understand maybe making a far argument that she's a little she's below average instead of being a terrible winner, but I still would go with the terrible to god awful range as far as Natalie's winning game. The next one that I have is, okay, she says, okay, promise last thing. Kagyan is overrated. I hated that season. I was so bored. Like Sarah, that season sucked, I guess. The only 2 people that I liked was Tony and Spencer. Other than that, I hate it. I don't know what you're talking about. Kagyan's a great season. If the only two people that you liked in the entire season as characters were Tony and Spencer, you obviously were not paying attention. You have probably the best pre-merge boots possibly of all time, other than maybe like 41. This season had amazing pre-merge boots, filling their roles perfectly in David and then Garrett, both overplaying themselves out of the game, especially David. And then you have Bryce and Jatia being fun characters while they're here, but not good enough players to go far. And so it's a good thing that they went out this early. Then, I mean, I guess you have somewhat of a slog at the end of the swap, I guess. But even then, you get the 2 for episode where you get Cliff getting blindsided, which is also one of the best pre-merge blindsides of all time. And then you get Lindsay's quit, which speeds up the pre-merge, or at least the post swap. Then you get arguably the best merge episode of all time. Then you get arguably the best post merge of all time. Then you get arguably a top 5 finale of all time, and you get probably the most deserving winner of any season ever, probably. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, there's nothing really wrong with the season, other than the fact that maybe the post merge was a little bit too simple. Like, it was a little bit just like okay, Tony flips here, Tony flips here. Like, it's not as fun on a rewatch maybe as like a season like, I don't know, like Dave versus Goliath, or even like a Micronesia. But you know, I still think it's at least a top 2 season. I always go back and forth with Dave versus Goliath and Kagyan, but I'll probably swing Dave versus Goliath for now. But if I go rewatch Kagyan, I'll probably swing Kagyan. So I don't know how you could be bored during Kagyan and then not only bored for one episode, but bored the entire time. To me, you would have to be taking some serious sleeping pills to be bored the entire time during Kagyan. This next one that I have, the guy, Tyler, he says the auction should just consist of food. If they want to put advantages in it, then they should be hidden in the food. I love that idea, to make it all food, which is something that I've mentioned in the past, and that really the entire Survivor community has really put out in the past as a great idea. But then also, if you want to still keep advantages, just put them hidden in the food so that people don't save up their money. So just say there is only food in this option. There is no items that will be bid off, that are advantages, because technically you're not lying. There's no advantages being bid off, but there is advantages being put in items that are being bid off. And so you would be kind of tricking the players into not saving up their money for some sort of advantage, and instead just buying food. And hopefully, you just get a player who gets lucky instead of a player who tries to time it right or something like that. But then again, players would just go back to trying to guess, and maybe they would only buy big items, or I don't know. To me, it's always going to be kind of flawed, and that's why I've never been the biggest person on the auction, as far as we need the auction or else the Survivor's going to go off the air, because in the end it is 9 minutes of one episode out of the 40 times the 13 episodes. So I don't know, something I think it's 4,200 minutes or 420 minutes or something like that. But it's a lot of time. And for 9 minutes of that, it's not that big of a deal to me, personally. But I can understand why people have tons of nostalgia for it, and why they really, really find it, close to their heart, because it is in a bunch of really, really nice old school seasons like Gabon. And it adds social dynamics, and it develops characters a lot, for sure. The next one says Worlds Apart top 5 season. I gotta strongly disagree with you there. I think it's an F tier season. I think it is at the top of the F tier season, just because it is obviously not so recent, but it's more recent than a season like Thailand is, or a season like Redemption Island or One World is. But to me, it's still definitely the worst season from the 30s, other than maybe a Ghost Island. But even then, I'd probably go back and watch. No, I think it and Ghost Island are kind of on the same level. It may beat out Ghost Island just by a teeny bit as far as the better season, but it's still a bad season. In fact, I can make the argument that it's a bottom 5 season, not a top 5 season. The next one that we have is Tommy Sheehan is the best player of all time socially, which I do have to kind of object to just a teeny bit, because he has only played one game against, I would say, a pretty damn good cast. But he's only had one game to show his game. We have no idea what happens if he plays. For me, as much as everyone loves to value, okay, it's only their first games that matter. If you can come back and do it again, that's so impressive to me, especially if you come in with a big target. And so I think someone like Sarah that played in Game Changers, played a great social game, and then comes back and plays an even, well, maybe not an even better social game, but it plays another masterful game. To me, that's more impressive than Tommy playing one really, really good game. So that's just my personal opinion. The next one that we have is the non-strategical social game Old Guy. It's an underrated strategy and people underestimate it. People have enjoyed it. People that have employed it may include Tarzan, Dan, Medevac Joe, and Rudy. People that talk about social players tend to ignore this archetype entirely. I think it's good for getting far in the game, but as far as winning the game, I think if you're a dude, you really need to be like that aggressive player. Whether you're socially aggressive or strategically aggressive, you need to be aggressive. I think it's different with women archetypes. You know, you need to fit into maybe a more social game, as women strategical players just tend to be a little bit too abrasive. Like see Shan for a perfect example. But I think if you're a guy, you're kind of forced to either play like a very aggressive like Joe Mena type of game, or play a very, very like under the radar strategic game like Tommy. Being like an old guy, I think your only shot is going to the end with two other goats and then just trying to argue that you simply played a better game than them by making moves and by flipping. So like the old guy who just kind of sits there and just kind of knows everyone and nobody necessarily hates them, I really don't think that works, and it obviously hasn't worked so far, as nobody in that archetype other than Bob has won the game. And obviously Bob's kind of an outlier because of the way that he won and the nature that he had won. Another one says some people want to watch Survivor as an escape from reality. So while it is showing real people, it is still fundamentally a manufactured game. The serious political discussions take away from the entertainment for a lot of fans. 100% agree with this. I think to me, it's not that I don't want to ever hear about bad things going on in the world, at least in people's opinions. But I don't want to hear about it when I'm watching Survivor. I'll go turn on the news or go to Twitter or go to Instagram or whatever, or YouTube, if I want to hear about it. But I want to go seek that myself. I don't want somebody to shove it in my face and try. And then on top of that, put their own biased spin on it and tell me what I need to think. I mean, at least if you're going to like put the news on in Survivor, at least give multiple perspectives. Instead, they just give, obviously one very biased and somewhat untrue perspective, and it's theirs. And I think this is the last one. And this person, No Scope Mason, says, unpopular opinion. Winners at War was not great. There was some iconic moments, but Edge of Extinction was bad, and Tokens were bad, but Tony was great. I would have to agree with this, to be honest. I think what saves Winners at War is that it's the best cast strategically. I think the best cast ever was Heroes vs. Villains, because it just had everybody. Other than like Fair Play and Hatch, which were for obviously Fair Play quitting and then Hatch not being able to leave the country. But aside from that, I think the cast was literally perfect. I guess maybe if you swapped out like Sugar and Ozzy, but then again, the whole half women, half men cast. I mean, like for me, the cast was overall, aside from maybe a few mistakes, literally perfect. Whereas in Winners at War, it may not have been perfect. They may have missed out on a lot of winners, but I will say that Winners at War has the most strategically advanced cast of all time. And that's it, guys. I just wanted to get out a video where I looked at your unpopular opinions. If you want to get in on this next feedback one, I'll probably do one on maybe what you would do if you were on Survivor or something else. Give me suggestions for the next question, for the next video, where you guys help me out. And in the meantime, join the Discord server so that you guys can get in on this next video. And if that's it, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.